Staying with us for WUSA 9 News at 5:30, and tonight we're talking about yet another unexpected turn in the race for Virginia's lieutenant governor. So Democratic candidate Ghazala Hashmi has refused to debate her Republican opponent, John Reid. So what did Reid do? He used artificial intelligence to host his own 40-minute debate.
First, the Republican candidate, Mr. John Reid. Welcome, Mr. Reid. Next, the Democrat candidate, State Senator Ghazala Hashmi. Senator Hashmi, are you there?
Good to be here. Thanks so much.
That is quite the statement, huh? Well, Hashmi's campaign shared a statement with us tonight saying Reid is more interested in, quote, shoddy gimmicks and does not care about governing. Reid's campaign defends this debate you're looking at here, saying it was fully cited and sourced. We want to get an expert's opinion now on the use of AI in politics. Cody Bunton is an assistant professor at the University of Maryland's College of Information, or iSchool. Cody, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. First up, you saw some of that debate right there play out. We had the AI moderator. We had the fake applause as well. We had the AI candidate. What do you make of what you just saw?
That definitely seems like an interesting performance. I actually might applaud the Reid campaign for putting together something like that. It doesn't really address the main value that political debates tend to have, where you have two individuals coming together, basically demonstrating they both think they are peers to the other one, right? Clearly, this is an example where somebody has said, I'm not going to take part in this for one reason or another, and then somebody else saying, well, I'm going to try and make the best use of the technology that we have to try and get some point across. But the idea that they really cited the views of their opponent, the opponent's campaigns appeared to say that there was nothing factually wrong about the positions that the AI-generated candidate took, that they were consistent with the actual candidate. It's a very interesting sort of performative piece.
Yeah, and it certainly gets your attention, right? I mean, that's what people are talking about now, and the point was made. John Reid's point.
Absolutely. It does seem to have some impact on getting his name out there and in our current attention economy. Maybe that's a useful aspect from the standpoint of getting eyes on his campaign.
Yeah, so Cody, beyond this debate, we've seen President Trump sharing several AI-generated videos on social media as well. How else is AI popping up and being used in politics these days?
Absolutely. This is a great question. This is a question we talk about in class consistently, because historically AI has sat between politicians and their constituents for 20 to 25 years now, easily being a major factor in deciding what kind of content gets in front of you, from what kind of political ads you're shown, what kind of content politicians need to create to gain traction on places like social media. But now we're increasingly seeing it taking a role in the kind of content that's actually being created. This being, the use of AI to generate a stand-in opponent, to the use of AI to generate what you might think of as political cartoons. This is President Trump's use of AI to generate, pretty eye-catching and extreme but engaging kinds of content, in a way that political cartoonists have done for a long time, just using new technology for this. So I think certainly we're seeing a new era in the use of AI to create content that directly gets in front of you. There's been some good research saying that AI-generated content actually is more impactful in responding to constituents compared to brief one-liners when people call in or email their senators and representatives asking about particular concerns. AI-generated responses seem to be viewed as more positive and more engaging, and overall are better accepted than thank you for your concern. We're going to work on this. So I think that's what we're seeing much more of today.
Yeah, that is fascinating. I'm thinking of that debate last year in Virginia, which played out on Zoom. One of Congressman Don Byer's opponents, he replaced him with what became known as the Don Bot at the time. So how are voters responding to this? You mentioned that just a bit, how they are responding positively to what they're saying.
It depends often on the context, right?
Okay.
So if we're looking at how people are engaging with their politicians, when they engage directly, there seems to be some positive acceptance of this. But when we look at the role of AI more generally, what this means for trust in information, how people get their news, then certainly there's impact. There's a large concern people have So the survey's research on this suggests most people don't really have a clear sense of how AI works. And when they think about what are the major concerns for AI, a lot of their concern is about what does this mean for the quality of information that I consume? What does this mean for the trust I have in the information that I consume? So there's definitely a lot of skepticism and concern about how we consume general news and information here.
Yeah, Cody, because what we've noticed and what we saw there in that debate, it is getting more advanced. It's almost tough to spot what's real and what's fake.
Yeah, this is what's very interesting about this is that all the notable, or at least the majority of notable examples we have about the use of AI in modern or like in recent political communication in the United States is these instances are notable not because they are fooling people, but because many times they're actively not fooling people. So the robocall story with the Biden presidential campaign during the primary season is one of the few times where you see somebody actively trying to fool people thinking that this is real content. But in other instances, the use of these fake images, these fake AI stand-ins, the videos that President Trump puts out, no one expects, like, no one believes those are real things, right? They are attention grabbing, and our technology is getting better. You can generate this content faster and easier. And eventually, we're going to be in this place where it's going to be hard to differentiate between what's real and what's fake. There's lots of examples of that kind of thing increasingly happening. But much of what we see in political communication is that nobody believes that these kinds of fake things they're seeing generally are real. They're entertaining or attention getting.
Yeah, so what advice do you have for, the folks at home about ways to spot what is real and what is not? It's becoming increasingly difficult to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. Many of the signals about what's real and what's not aren't really in the piece of content itself or the video itself, right? The things that are major determinants is where's that content coming from? Is it coming from a journalist Is it coming from a news media source that you're familiar with? Many of these signals about where that content is emerging from tend to be really good predictors of whether something is real. If a major news source is reporting on it, you can imagine or at least expect that there's been several people behind that evaluating the veracity or quality of that kind of content. Pay attention to those external signals. If it just shows up on your feed, you've never seen it before from an account you don't recognize and never heard of, be much more skeptical then.
Yeah, and on that same note, Cody, we know AI is a new territory for many of us. So are there any rules or regulations about disclosing the use of AI in political communications? Should they make it more obvious?
Well, certainly there are not rules, at least as
Yeah.
as far as what we've seen from a legalistic standpoint. A lot of the platforms are increasingly putting in policy saying you have to acknowledge when stuff is AI generated. This tends to be very hard, though, because if you go take a picture of the moon with your phone, there's likely to be some form of AI modification there. Does that count as AI generated? This becomes very difficult to do from a legal policy perspective. So the platforms are stepping in and saying you should tag things that are like clearly AI generated, and you'll often see a little note at the bottom. TikTok is known for doing this as well. So should there be more effort to try and be clear about what's AI generated? Probably that would be useful. The concern then is how much of these kinds of labels impact people's perceptions of trust, because oftentimes people see, oh, this is AI generated, which means I don't need to trust it. And there are impacts on what actually do we trust now?
Yeah, and we have the midterm elections next year, and I'm sure we're going to be flooded with lots of ads, lots of content. So what guardrails are needed for these future elections?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's going to be what determines acceptable use. So it turns out many things that we rely on in the political space are protected primarily by social norms and norms of the space. There often are not specific policies in place for doing this. I think what we'll start to see, or what we would hope to see, is some agreements about what constitutes acceptable use here, and that the public is going to be willing to push back when they see things that are clearly not acceptable. It's unclear what particular entity will have the political will and sort of capability to push back on providing these specific guardrails, though. I think that's the big question: is who's going to enforce that?
Right, right. All right, Cody Bunton with the University of Maryland's iSchool. Thank you so much for lending us your expertise tonight. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
Thank
sure
you
we'll
so
be,
much.
We'll be talking again soon, I'm sure.